Hi there, I'm Lauren from the Art Center, here to help you make a patchwork snowflake paper craft. One of our favorite parts of the holiday season is joining kids of all ages at old-fashioned downtown Christmas to make holiday crafts. We weren't able to do that this year, but we wanted to bring the crafts to your home. And thanks to funding from the C. Scott and Muriel Mayfield Family Foundation, we've assembled some take-home craft kits for you and your family. Even if you don't have a craft kit, you can follow along with these videos. Most of the supplies you probably have at home. If not, they're pretty easy to find. So the supplies for our Snowflake Patchwork paper quilt are pretty simple. You need a glue stick, tape, glue, anything that will adhere paper together is going to work for you. Scissors, kids safe for the little ones, grown-ups for those of us with big fingers. And then you're going to need paper. You need a large piece of paper to create the background of your paper quilt. And then you're going to need 8 smaller pieces of paper. The important thing to note, all 8 of your small pieces of paper need to be the same size. These, for instance, are 4 inches by 4 inches. And your large paper needs to be just a little bit larger than your 4 square. So for instance, if I had these together, that would be 8 inches by 8 inches. So I need my larger piece to be about 8.5 by 8.5. So that way it's going to create a border on our final paper quilt. So whether you're using the papers that were included in your art quilt or papers found around your house, you need 8 small squares in 1 large square. Once you've assembled your materials, it's time to consider your layout. I have the same colors here for my prepared sample as I do with my supplies. As you'll see, I went for a little contrast in that I have 2 purple backgrounds and 2 white backgrounds. However, for this one that I'm going to make, I want to be a little more consistent. So I'm going to choose to cut my paper snowflakes out of all white and use my lavender for the background color. So I'm going to go ahead and lay out my 4 pieces of paper on my large paper. If I wanted to, I could go ahead and glue those so that my surface would be ready for my snowflakes. To give you an example of my first step in this previously done demo, I was mentioning that I had a little contrast. So I chose, instead of using the same color for all of my snowflakes, I mixed it up a little bit. And I did a pattern with 2 white and 2 purple. This is a place where there's lots of room for creativity. If you don't have a pre-assembled art kit, you might want to use 8 different colors to have a really rainbow of colors on your snowflake quilt. It's up to you, and this is really where you should let your imagination take charge. However, I am again going to be a little more consistent. So I'm going to leave my 4 pieces here, and I'm going to use these 4 white squares to make the paper snowflake. So, to make our snowflake, it takes 4 folds of the cardstock and then some cuts. So we will begin with the folds. First, you fold your square in half. If you are using the squares provided by the Art Center, or perhaps even if you've made your own, chances are the edges are not going to line up perfectly. If they're cut by a human, they're probably not perfect. So as best as you can, line up on the edge and fold in half. You're going to do that 2 more times. So that is my second half fold, getting it as close to perfect as possible. And 1 more fold. It's almost about like making a paper football at this point. So now I have completed my folds. And we have a small triangle. It's pretty thick at this point, so you need some strong scissors and maybe a grown-up to help you. Now, To make the beautiful pattern in our snowflake, we are going to cut shapes along all three sides of our now triangle. And this is another place to let your imagination take hold. You can do a variety of shapes. You can do half circles, half triangles, squares, squiggles, whatever you want to do. If you want a consistent pattern, use the same cuts. If you want it to be kind of funky, use different cuts. As you can see here in this example, I have used all triangles, so you have a very consistent pattern across the board. But like real snowflakes, even if you use the same shape, it doesn't mean your end result is going to be the same, because no two snowflakes are alike. So in the example I just showed you, I used triangle cuts. So for my next one, I'm going to use half circles to show you how the end result looks a little different based on the different shapes. The important thing is to make sure you keep your cuts along the edges. You don't want to cut across to the other side, and then you don't want your holes to run into each other. That's where you run into issues. If you look closely, you can see I had a bit of an oops on one of these, and it kind of started to fall apart because I cut a little too close. So do be mindful that you're staying on the edges and not running into your cuts. I've about run out of room on the edges, so I'm going to unfold and reveal my snowflake. So then, to create the layers of the quilt, simply take a glue stick or whatever you're using to attach your papers. This purple glue dries clear, so you won't have to worry too much. And I have one square in my Patchwork Snowflake quilt. Now, compared to this one, my design is larger, the holes are bigger, and this one is smaller and more intricate. That's because I made smaller and more cuts. So in my next fold, I'll try to keep them smaller with a half circle, and we can see how that compares. So this is slightly more detailed than the previous. So you repeat that process 4 times by doing your 3 folds, cutting along all 3 edges of your triangle, and then opening to reveal your snowflake shape, creating your layer and your quilt square, and then ultimately arranging them on your border until you have the pattern you desire. It's a lot of fun to combine your shapes to create the patterns in the snowflakes and the colors of your paper. A lot of possibility to be creative and inventive. We sure hope that you will share your results with us on Instagram or Facebook using the hashtag #MyArtCenter. Also, there's a lot of possibilities to do with paper snowflakes. Check out the coffee filter snowflake video. Another thing you can do with similar techniques, just different materials with the end results. And we'd love to hear the ideas you have of other ways you can decorate or just be crafty using materials found around your home to get in the holiday spirit. Happy holidays.